Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are glad to have you all here as we prepare for Olav Phillips for a night of UFOs and black projects. It's always fun when Olav is on, filling in for Science Bob tonight. But first, before we bring Olav on, let's say hello to each and every one of you. Tim Mothman and his goatee in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver. Paramarv taking home the bronze tonight. Kitty Caddywhack, how are you? Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because you always wanted to go into a show with Olav nice and smooth. He likes to be lubed up underneath all his plaid clothing. So thank you, Mel, for the lube. We greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to give yourself a shot, too. You know what I'm talking about. Robert Lamoth and Attorney at Large, Michael Morris, thank you for coming on in. As we scroll on down on our roll call, there's Lisa Smith and K17. How you guys doing? Thunderhead and Necessary Dialogue. Good to have you here. Frankie B, nice to see you. Von Patrick is here. Von Patrick will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. All right. Good morning, Skip to Malou. Mama Catherine. Mwah. I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a wonderful night. I know you always love it when Olav is on, so it'll be a good show, I promise. T-Bone, my man, nice to see you as we scroll on down on our roll call here. JSCO, Operation Shutdown. Nice to have you both here as we scroll on down and say hello to number 37 in your program tonight, starting in goal from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. He's got a 2.39 goals against so far this year. He's right on Vesna pace. Good for you. Good morning, Commonwealth Andrew. How you doing? As we continue on with our roll call, Amy WC, nice to see you. And Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show as we scroll on down and say hello to Matthew Goodka. Zanoka, welcome to SOR Chat. And who is next? Well, it's Audacious Amber. Wow, it's been a while since we've seen you in here. And East Coast Turnaround, thank you for coming on in on X. Listening in. All right, moving on down. Where are we here? I'm hardcore over on X. Toe Tag, how you doing? Nice to see you. Fat Nuts is here. Fat Nuts will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. He doesn't like eye contact, so don't make eye contact. Otherwise, he won't sign. All right, moving on down. We say hello next to Sweet Donna C. How are you? Nice to see you. Digger Dog and Aussie Boss Tiger. Nice to have you both here. Algaray over on Twitch. So excited for Olav to be on the show. He ran 7.5 miles in 1.9 minutes. 1.9 minutes. He didn't even stop. Yeah, world record time. Jeremy Jones, how you doing? And let's see here. No, that isn't true. Walter Kochubinski, thanks for coming on in. As we scroll on down on our roll call here, who's next? Undead Jed is next. There he is. And let's see, who else do we have? We have Rock and Rory. How are you tonight? Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We are going to have Olav Phillips in for Science Bob tonight, who's doing some science, so he couldn't make it. Actual science, really. We're in roll call on our YouTube side right now as we say hello to Lucky Gypsy over on Twitch. Laura Elizabeth, your hair looks great tonight. And who is next on our list here? Well, let's take a look. I don't know. Scrolling on down. Jay Trueseeker, how are you? And Grandizer, it's been a while. Nice to have you back. Luscious Jules, nice to see you. Deborah Rooney, always a pleasure. TCR, how you doing? All right, Super Chat is open. Noble Patrick, where have you been hiding? Noble Patrick is here as well. Look, good. United We Stand. Carol Romario, nice to have you here. Science of Life. Horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin knows where to go. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show tonight. We're going to get into UFOs. We're going to get into dark projects. Olav Phillips is here tonight as we're going to enjoy his knowledge of the subject. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller is here for another spooky story. And we kind of got a little bit of a new feature tonight. We're moving Katie Page into the Q&A with Lee Strauss. And so coming in for the weird news of the week, we're going to have Terry Hall join us each and every week. He's part of the SOR team. He's got a fantastic mustache. And you guys are going to enjoy that tonight. We even got some new music for him. It'll be good. All right. Olav Phillips is a respected paranormal researcher, author, and media contributor known for his thoughtful, evidence-based approach to ghosts, hauntings, unexplained phenomena like black projects, UFOs, alien contact, MK Ultra, you name it, he has studied it. Olav has spent years honing his topics, making sure that he has absolutely great sources of knowledge. He works in a field where he has the ability to literally talk about these things, but he can't talk about them in public, if you know what I'm saying. He's been on this show a number of times, and every time we bring him on, he brings some weird new knowledge to us about things that we don't know about. For instance, are we really trying to get to Mars, or are we already there? Are we trying to get to the moon, or do we already have bases there? What kind of craft do we have that are flying out there that can get there to these places without having to use SpaceX type rockets? It's a very interesting concept. It pushes the realm of sci-fi, and we love it when he is here. Olav Phillips, a man who is always wearing some sort of plaid. It is good to have you here. How you doing, my friend?
Doing all right. I got the plaid.
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations, Dave.
Olaf, for people who may not have heard you speak on this show before, you are
Mhm.
somebody who takes a deeper look into the UFO subject and that of the strange and abnormal. Why did you go that route rather than just sticking with the paranormal, supernatural, and everything that most people do?
Well, I started on the UFO side. I had a sighting when I was a kid, and I spent my entire life trying to figure out what exactly I saw. And like everybody, I like ghosts and haunted houses, and I went and did that stuff too because I'm fascinated by it. When I was young, we watched sightings and other shows like that, and I grew up with In Search Of, and I wanted to understand these things that I'm watching. So I started to get into it, but over time I came to realize that it's all linked together, and you don't really have one without the other. I mean, I was watching a documentary just the other day on Bigfoot, and they were talking. I mean, I already knew, but they were talking about how when you have sightings of cryptids, that you tend to have a lot of UFO sightings at the same time. And so it's trying to understand that linkage, but they appear to be linked, so it's natural to want to research all of it.
How much fun do you like looking into these projects that most people don't even waste their time on?
Oh, I love a rabbit hole, so I just started in on a new rabbit hole, but it just I think there's something about my brain that likes the complexity of it, that I enjoy the twists and turns of it all and trying to figure it out.
You have been known as someone who has dealt with everybody from whistleblowers to MK Ultra, My Labs,
Mhm.
secret space programs,
Mhm.
alien contact. What intrigues you about this subject?
I think it is the complexity of it. I mean, to be honest with you, there is no way to completely figure it out. I'm not convinced there is something to figure out. You just kind of chart your way through it and try to understand it versus, I don't think you can solve it, but I think you can understand it. And I don't know. I think it's just the complexity of it. It really is a rabbit hole. I like it.
Talk about that rabbit hole, though.
Okay. Well,
What makes it a rabbit hole?
you start out with something simple. I mean, you talked about MK Ultra. You you look at MK Ultra. Well, there's what 129 sub projects of MK Ultra, each one doing something slightly different. So then you start going down and seeing how they're all linked together. And then you start to see these names, and these names pop up in other places, and you start to figure out, that this individual, Hal Puthoff, he was he was involved in Stargate, he was involved in some Ultra, he was involved in SRI, and to the start, my favorite, To the Stars Academy. It's like it runs all around. So, you start to see these people, and each thing leads to something new.
There have been so many rabbit holes to go to and
Yes,
run down with this field. I mean, we
absolutely.
see it going on X every day about the government cover up of UFOs. How much
Right.
further beyond does it go what we see, say, what's playing out on X with this subject?
Oh, I'm sure it goes far, far deeper than that. I mean, X is nothing, right? X is surface level. The way that these kinds of things work is that if it's on X, they've already lost control of it. They don't even care. There's so much more, I'm sure, at so many different levels that I mean, it's impossible to know how deep it goes. The Danny Cos I was watching the Danny Casolaro thing on Netflix, and it's like, I read the book by Ken Thomas, and, I know a fair amount about the octopus, but it really is, it's like an octopus, a hydra, whatever you wanna call it. It's like the only way I could probably describe it to you is it's like you ever seen one of those anthills where they pour, like, molten aluminum into them, and they make
Yes.
sculptures? Yeah, it's like that, but it's bottomless. That you don't know where it ends. How could you, how could you possibly know where it'll all end? It's it's and it's by design. You take a thing. It's like, cars, right? It's like you take a car and you completely my brother did this once. You take a car, you completely dismantle it down to the frame, and then you hand every component of it, whether it's a turbo booster or it's a radiator or it's a fuel injection system or the gas tank or the wheels or the brakes or the brake pads, the rotors, the axles, the springs, the leaf springs. You hand every single one of those pieces to somebody different because the end goal is that no one person can reconstruct the car. So, like I heard a story once of a guy, he was a very sophisticated, well-trained machinist, and he spent his entire career making these bolts out of some kind of super alloy. And they had to be super machine, like super accurate. And every day he went to work and boom, 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 out come a bunch of bolts. I mean, he's hand machining bolts. We cast bolts. Like it's not bolts are nothing. You go to Lowe's and they're like 5 cents. This guy's actually custom machining bolts. And the material that he was using was some kind of super strong material. And he, spent 20 years making bolts. They paid him good. He was happy. And he had no idea what the bolt was for. He just put them in a box and the box got tested and then went somewhere. And one day he was going through a nautical museum and he saw a mock-up of a nuclear reactor. It was actually a nuclear reactor that they used to train the nuclear engineers on board the submarines and surface vessels. And it's a complete reactor, just doesn't have any fissile material. And so the guy's looking at the reactor. He's like, "Wait a minute!" And so then he looks real close, gets his head real close, tight in there, and there's a mark on the bolts that he would make that was required. And he's like, "Oh my God, that's the bolt that I spent 20 years making." And he's looking all over the reactor, and these bolts are all over the reactor. He spent 20 years making them. He had no idea they were used in a nuclear reactor for a submarine.
But that is the key for the
Yeah,
military industrial complex. They make bolts in one section, they make wheels in another state, they
correct.
make the um the, the glass in another one. I mean, that's
The
how they keep it
fuselage,
all together. That's how they keep the machine moving.
right? And then eventually, all those bits and pieces come back to a hangar where it's assembled. And I mean, they do this for commercial and military, right? That, if you take like an Airbus or you take like a Boeing aircraft, all the components that make up that airplane that you're about to hop on to go to Hawaii, you got your, 737, you know, I don't know, 737-800 or whatever. You know, you, every piece in that thing was made somewhere else. I mean, they made the sheet metal that goes on the wings in one place. They bought the radios from another place. The avionics came from another place. It's all spread out. Well, in the military industrial complex, you do that for security.
Very true. Very
Mhm.
true. Have you ever met a whistleblower that you truly believe in this field?
As a policy, because of the way laws work here in the United States, as a policy, I don't really like whistleblowers. They're dangerous for me as a person. you know, um, I mean, they're protected by a bunch of laws, but that doesn't mean that I'm protected. So I tend to stay away from them. It's also really hard in a lot of cases to divine whether the whistleblower is real, right? But on occasion, I've been in an event and somebody walked up and told me something, right? And I think probably the best one I ever heard is I was on a radio show and we were talking about, various things and secret space program mostly. And this guy called up in the last 10 minutes of the show and he identified that he was in the Pacific Northwest and he was an retired aeronautical engineer. And there's a lot that you can kind of figure out from that. Um, And he said that he comes on the show and he's only on for about 3 or 4 minutes. And he starts talking about he back in the 70s, he worked in this special access program, and they built, I think, three satellite constellation was lifted into orbit. Two of them were hunter killers, and the third was in an equatorial orbit. They were designed to blow stuff up. Well, actually, to chop it apart with a laser. And he was adamant about it. And then he said, "That's all I have to say," and he hung up. I think that was probably the most interesting one I've ever had.
Have you ever had people come up to you personally, face to face, and
Mhm.
say, "This is what I know. I don't want to go public. I just need to tell somebody this story"?
Never comes out quite like that. I've never had anybody ever tell me something like that. Um, I was once at a convention and a guy walked and unsolicited, for the powers of beer listening. And he came up and said, "Hey, I'm a contractor." I said, "Good for you." And he said, "I work on this and that, and we've been installing this and that on these vehicles, and what do you think?" And I'm like, "Wow, that's pretty damn impressive if you can get it to work." And I kind of tossed it aside. And years later, here they come. They're saying, "Okay, we're now installing rail guns on ships." Well, this guy told me probably about 5 or 6 years before that he had personally worked on the electrical system of a rail gun that was put on a U.S. Navy vessel. So yeah, I mean, it happens now and again. I never seek it out, but if people come up and tell me stuff, I can't really help that. So, but yeah,
Right.
you hear some interesting things. I think the most interesting conversation like that I ever had was when I was young. I had just gotten started on the internet was just starting, and I ran a website called the S4 database because I've always had an interest in Bob Lazar and Area 51 and all that. And I got an email from him, and I didn't believe it was him. I was like, "You're not Bob Lazar." And he's like, "No, I'm Bob Lazar." And so he invited me to Desert Blast, a big party he used to throw in the desert over on BLM land. That's a whole show in and of itself. But all the big guys were there. John Lear and all these guys were there. And the day before, I got there a little bit early, and I went over to his house, and I'm sitting in his office across the desk from him, and he's telling me about S4. And he's got a mini supercomputer behind him running shockwave calculations on something that he was thinking about building that could break the sound barrier. I think that was probably the best one I ever had, sitting at Bob Lazar's desk in Bob Lazar's house, talking to Bob Lazar about
That's pretty cool.
S4. It was
That's
pretty
pretty
cool.
cool.
By
I've
the
talked to
way,
him on the phone once, and Jim Goodall, who is a good friend of this show, it was actually day before my birthday or something like right around my birthday a couple of years ago. And
there
I
you go.
called Jim up and I'm like, "How you doing, Jim?" And I said, "How was the trip to Bob's?" And he goes, "I'm still here. I'm sitting on his couch right now." And
Oh,
I'm
he's a
like,
riot.
"No." And I'm like, "No kidding." I said, I said, "Jim, it's my birthday here." I said, Can I say hello to Bob?" He goes, "Of course." So I got
He's
to
a
get
sweet guy.
oh yeah, very nice guy.
Oh, yeah. And his story has never changed. Since 1989, his story has never changed.
Why do you think we have such a tough time at believing Bob Lazar and his Area 51 story?
I think because he was very detailed about it. It's the very thing that makes me believe him. I think that he was very detailed about it. And I also think that he talked about things that a lot of people don't wanna hear, right? That when he went through that briefing, they showed him videos that appeared to have been shot in the biblical era. It's like, people don't wanna hear that kinda stuff. But I think that he also, and he'll tell you this if you ever get him on, he made some mistakes. He installed a security system in an off the books brothel, got busted for it. He made some choices that kind of impugn him in the eyes of others. But I think it's also, he's very detailed, and I think he's a nuts and bolts guy. He'll never tell you that he saw an alien because he didn't. He'll never tell you that it's an alien vehicle because he's not sure. He'll tell you, I think it is, but I'm not sure. And I think he's a very quiet, shy guy. And I think that he, for a very long time until that documentary came out, I think he just really didn't push hard, you know, to get out there. I mean, he made a video that I doubt anybody who's listening has even seen, excerpts of the government Bible. But he's a very nice guy. He's very charismatic, like when you talk to him, because he's nice. But I think he lacked that need for adoration, and he never really capitalized on it. Like he never really made a lot of money on it. He just kind of was like, this is what I experienced, this is what happened. I saw where he fixed the bullet hole on the back of his Corvette. I mean, it's like these things are real, but he never really pushed it very hard.
Why do you think there's so many holes in his story? We got about 3 minutes to go. Where he
Why?
went to school, documentation. I mean, there's a
That's
lot
because,
that doesn't add up.
yeah, but there's a lot that does add up. I mean, he has a W-2. I mean, it's all the minutia. He has a W-2 from the Department of Naval Intelligence. And he obviously did some work for them somewhere. He's in the phone book. As far as the other stuff, the dates line up, but there's no documentation. I knew a guy once who was in the army. He was a mechanic. He kept talking about how the Apache gunship had structural problems and structural fatigue. They ran him out of the army. They gave him a you know a, a normal discharge, so he could get the VA or whatever. But they were like, your enlistment's up, you need to leave. And they basically destroyed all the records of him being ever having been in the army. The only way he was able to prove it is that he had his DD-214 and he had all the paraphernalia that came with it. He walked into the VA office and dumped all this documentation, and they were able to finally, find, okay, well, you graduated mechanic school, you must have been in the army. I mean, even my own father, he went into the VA and was trying to get benefits, and they said, well, we have no evidence that you ever served in Southeast Asia. And so he brought in an award. It's the equivalent of a Silver Star that he was given by the Republic of South Vietnam. And he said, here, I got this when I was in Vietnam. He said, oh, okay, well, we'll give you your benefits then. I mean, they knew he was in the military, but you know, they erasing backgrounds. My father is a bit of a different case, but erasing backgrounds and losing people from educational institutions that are beholden to the government, I don't find that hard to believe at all.
It's kind of weird to think because it's so easy for people to say, point blank that, oh, they erased my records.
In
You
Lazar
know,
in Lazar's case, I think they did, but I knew several people. My dad obviously had all kinds of records from his service in the military, but I knew a guy who they literally erased him from the U.S. Army. Once you know a few people where something like that happened, it's a lot easier to believe it.
I get that. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there is, a healthy uh I think we would all be naive. Let me put it this way. I think we'd all be naive to think that the government isn't going to do anything that they can to keep their secrets.
Absolutely. And I want to go on record yet again saying that some secrets need to be kept. There are national security secrets that we need to keep, for our own defense and for Canada, right? You guys keep stuff secret because you want to protect Canada, maybe from us, but you want to protect Canada. It's
True.
the right of every nation state to have secrets to defend itself.
Olav Phillips is here tonight. When we return, we're going to ask him about a secret base that apparently is holding UFOs. Next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, buddy. We are clear. Good start.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm hoping to make it fun.
You always do.
I try.
You always do.
Yeah, that bass. I'll have a good conversation on the place. It's an interesting bass, but not for UFOs. Oh, I'm just as full of shit as everybody else.
Who said you're full of shit?
I did. Everybody in this field's full of shit at some level.
Oh, at one point or another.
Oh yeah.
Mike Rivers, how you doing? Mike Rivers, look at this. Good evening, good show, good start. Very nice, Mike Rivers.
Thank you, Mike Rivers. Mike Rivers
Uh-huh.
hyphen IX6GJ. Honestly, I think that if you have a guy who's a whistleblower, oh, don't toady us. Yeah, I won't toady you, I promise. You ask if you want to talk about Doty, you need what's his name? He'll tell you a story about Doty. He's like a cautionary tale in AFOSI. Walter Bosley.
Walter Bosley. I love Walter Bosley.
When you get Walter on, ask him about Doty. He'll tell you a story.
Right?
Yes. No, I won't Doty you, I promise. Please don't send a camera around to film me. If you ask OSI guys about Doty, they all say the same thing, and it's not good. No, but honestly, in my estimation, having farted around in ufology long enough and all this stuff, if somebody comes to you and I'm a whistleblower, you should be like, yeah, okay. I mean, Carrie Cassidy, I tore her up on an email list. She was going on and on about Courtney Brown, and I said, Courtney Brown's a sham. He was a sham in Hale Bop. He's a sham now. And I said, hey, let's talk about Captain Phillips, the guy who's spending a life sentence in the Vacaville Mental Institution for thinking that he's King Arthur and killing some old dude and cashing his social security checks. That guy was never and has never been in any kind of secret space program. He was a contractor that ripped off and murdered an old man in Marin so that he could turn Marin into Camelot. Yeah, she didn't comment after that. She left the group.
Oh my. Look at you go.
You gotta be real careful about quote unquote whistleblowers. The conspiracy world and ufology are just filled with them. I mean, I won't name him because I don't want to get sued, but there's the blue chicken guy with his circle ships. Somebody asked him, they told him, they said, hey, you said there's Nazi moon bases. You said you have photos. Can you send us one? And he puts out a picture. It's a screenshot right out of Iron Sky.
Oh,
I
man.
saw the picture. I'm, oh man, I know that. That's Iron Sky. Fun movie, but not real.
Some people's children.
I like that movie, but the second one with the inner Earth, that was funny. Hitler's head on a dinosaur was hilarious.
All right, buddy. Who else is
Does the VA cover moon base sickness?
I know nothing.
Man.
I know nothing.
I don't know, man. You better call them and ask.
Oh, no.
They'll cover your secret space program service? I don't know.
I don't know. Wonder if they clean carpets as well.
Well, that's the funny thing about what's his name, the guy from England, Gary McKinnon. Yeah, a lot of what he found was like toilet paper shipments between ships. It's like that kind of
Yep.
low level stuff. That's how you prove things.
Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you. Maybe two if you're lucky. We got about 30 seconds, Olav.
Okie dokie. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere.
That's good. Thank you to T-Bone for our lone super chat tonight. If you haven't already, do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We also would like you to give us a thumbs up or down. It helps with the algorithms. We prefer up. And let's get going here in 5 seconds.
Hey, super chat this guy. Come on.
Here into the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We have Olav Phillips. We're going to get into whether or not this secret base has any UFOs. Why? Why not? Because that's kind of what we talk about around here. Hey, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Olav Phillips is here hanging on out with us as we're going to get into the UFO chatter. And Olav, I want to read this story to you. I'm going to paraphrase it from Christopher Sharp. He is a friend of this show. He is also a great UFO reporter for liberationtimes.com. And he is saying that his sources have told him that Naval Air Station Patuxent River or Pax River in Maryland might be a place where there is exotic vehicles of unknown origin. Now, according to the story, sources have declined to describe the vehicle or disclose where it was found. However, it is understood that contingency plans may be in place to relocate the alleged craft if its current location were to be publicly identified. Pax River is the home and the headquarters of Naval Air Systems Command, or NAVAIR, and is a major center for naval aviation research, development, test, and evaluation. What's your thoughts so far?
So Pax River, yes, it's a test facility for the U.S. Navy. So they test all kinds of stuff there. It's actually not the interesting test place. I think they're looking in the wrong place. I could see an exotic vehicle of unknown origin being stored there that is purely conventional. I doubt they would ever put a UFO there. It's got too high a population around it. But typically they'll test modifications to F-18s there. They have a number of helicopter squadrons that they use for testing various things like, torpedo dropping or sonar buoys or all kinds of stuff like that. But I think that if there was ever a place that they would store UFO, the Navy would store a UFO, it's definitely not there. There's a whole different spot where they would do that. And by the way, let's get some super chats going.
Yes.
And yes, I know about White Sands. Go ahead.
Okay. So here's the big thing that I have about this. Okay. And where it would make sense to me that this place may be something where they would store one of these, or maybe in a deep bunker type hangar.
Okay.
And the reason why I believe that this might be true is because Lockheed Skunk Works has a significant presence at this location.
Well, of course. Because they test things like drones and other stuff there. It's just because the Skunk Works is there doesn't mean that there's UFOs. The Navy actually has another facility called AUTEC where they test. It would be more likely. AUTEC is Area 51 for the Navy. So I think that if you take Pax River and put in AUTEC, I think you've got a better estimation. Most likely, if the Navy was going to have extraterrestrial vehicles, it would be at AUTEC. It would not be at Pax River. Pax River there's too many people around. How can you fly? They put Area 51 into the middle of the desert for a reason, right? It's so that you can't watch it. If you're launching this kind of stuff from Pax River, there are millions of people that will see it. But the skunk works being there, I'm not surprised. I mean, they're working on top secret programs for F-18s and helicopters and all kinds of stuff. So and drones and other things. So I'm not surprised, but I definitely don't think the Navy put it there. They put it at AUTEC. In fact, AUTEC is so bizarre that I have it on good authority. And to my knowledge, it's not a classified thing. It's just not something that they talk about. Is that they actually have a degausser off out in the ocean off of AUTEC, and they run submarines through the degausser to demagnetize the hull, so you can't attach mines and stuff to it. But who knows what else when they go through that degausser? Who knows what else they're doing? And if they have a degausser under the ocean, that tells you the order of magnitude of what they're doing. And they've tested underwater HABs at AUTEC. I mean, all kinds of exotic stuff. So I think it's more likely it's at AUTEC.
See, that is one of the things that made me curious about this location.
It's
Okay.
a
And I
bad
think
location.
there is a lot of people. Maryland's not a big place.
No,
And considering the
very small.
base is right on the Maryland, New Jersey border, okay,
Yes,
that's a big population there.
it's a
And
terrible spot. It really is.
and
Okay,
why
good.
would you put something if that highly sensitive on the top secret?
You wouldn't. That's the point. That somewhere somebody is saying, okay, Pax River, there's a bunch of UFOs in Pax River. It's not that big. I mean, it's not big enough to have a bunch of UFOs hidden there, right? And so, it's one of those things where if somebody's saying that it's a Pax River, it's probably not. They're probably pointing you to Pax River to keep you from looking somewhere else. That's how disinformation works. And good on them for doing it, if they're trying to hide something, but it's Pax River's a terrible place to put a UFO.
But
How would you
but on the
how would
flip
you get it
side,
there? How would
on
you
the
get
flip
it there?
side, Olav, they may put parts there. They could be testing vehicle parts.
Absolutely. They could be testing vehicle parts. I reject the idea using Occam's razor. I fundamentally reject the idea that there's a UFO at Pax River. Now, they could take some object off the UFO and take it to Pax River. That makes sense, right? If they had some kind of well, it's like what Lazaro was talked about, the reactor, although I think it would be a bad place to put a reactor. But, if they had some kind of a gravity amplifier from the sports model or whatever, and they took it to Pax River for testing, that makes sense. You would need something small enough that you can put it on a C-130.
Definitely so. If you were looking at this, what would be if you look across the United States or maybe even the world,
Mhm.
where would you have your secret bases?
Honestly, no
Yeah.
BS.
Yes.
I would probably find some aligned nation or neutral nation out in the middle of nowhere. Me personally, I'd probably park it in Africa somewhere, or I'd probably park it in Southeast Asia, maybe Thailand. I don't know, somewhere outside the United States in the middle of nowhere. My money would be on South America or Africa.
In the United States, there are a number of secret bases like Area
There
51.
are, but ask me why.
Why?
So Area 51, White Sands, Dugway, these are all great candidates, right? Because it's huge expanses of desert. There's nobody out there. You can do all kinds of fun stuff without people watching. And if you're going to fly it, okay, but you still have to fly it over. Even if you take it off at Area 51 and you fly it out, you're going to fly it out over Vegas. You're going to hit a populated center in at least two of the four directions that you can go. If you're in Pax River, the minute it gets off the ground, the entire eastern seaboard is going to see it because they're all small states, right? If you take it somewhere, you're also if you're operating a program inside the United States, you are fundamentally governed by the laws of the United States. If you operate it outside, even in somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Italy or France, Germany, maybe even Greenland, if you operate these vehicles outside the United States, you're no longer bound by US law, right? So that's why when you talk about black sites, right? All these black sites are in, I mean, there's black sites in Syria. There's black site, there was a huge black site in Afghanistan. There's black sites in Iraq. I mean, there's tons of them. You know, Guantanamo, right? It's well, Guantanamo is a different case, but you have these little islands out in the middle of the ocean. They put black sites there. Why? Because they're outside the United States. So intelligence officers have a much more broad capability of what they can do and not do because they're not governed by the laws. Like in the United States, for example, right? Technically, according to the law, the CIA cannot operate. The FBI is the investigative service and counterintelligence service for for the United States. So if there's a counterintelligence operation that runs, it's performed by the FBI, whether it's in Alaska, Hawaii, or the continental US, Guam, Puerto Rico, whatever, it has to be run by the FBI. Now, if you have a counterintelligence or an espionage problem somewhere else, then it's the CIA that goes out and handles it. And they can do, I mean, as we saw even with Venezuela, right? They can do whatever they want and nobody catches them and they're all happy. But inside the United States, the CIA actually cannot operate missions inside the US. Now they can go to Canada, right, and operate inside of Canada because it's not the United States. So when you take these things, I would argue to you that probably the more specialized stuff that they're doing that's super uber secret is probably being done outside the United States.
What about places like these little islands that we see in the Pacific?
Perfect.
I mean, even up in Alaska, I know it's close to Russia, but they got all of these little inlets and islands there that would be easy to store this.
Oh yeah, Kodiak. If you wanted a place with a military installation, there's Kodiak. Nobody goes to Kodiak unless you're part of the military, right? No, there's a bazillion little islands in the middle of nowhere that they do all kinds of fun stuff with. I mean, it's because you go into something in one of these island chains, you go into the government, there's probably 1,000 people that live on that island. You say, hey, I'll give you $1 billion to just let me set up over here on the corner and leave me alone. And they will, because they get $1 billion and it's outside the US and it's outside the jurisdiction of the government of the US. And there's no oversight. So my money would be that they do it on little islands or in countries outside the United States, just like the way they do black sites. Trevor Paglen, he wrote a book that was like Blank Spaces on the Map, and he goes into quite a lot of lurid detail about how these things work. Trevor Paglen would actually be a really good guest for you if you come on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Locally, though,
him.
like if we look at the continental US, most people look at Area 51, most people look at Wright-Patterson, Dugway in Utah. What other secret bases are there that would need to be watched by this?
Well, as one of the people in the chat said, White Sands, of course. I mean, these are the big, these are the big places where it's huge expanses of desert that you can pretty much do whatever you want. But also Autek, but Autek is more about the ocean, right? It's Navy. The other thing about the Navy doing it is, if you think about how the military is organized, right? Each military branch has its own domain. So the Air Force guards the air, the Navy guards the oceans, the Army guards the ground, the Marines are part of the naval operations and specialize in amphibious assaults, right? Everything's organized. So the idea that the Navy is undertaking this massive UFO program at Pax River is unlikely because that's actually the domain of the Air Force because it's an aerial vehicle. So the Air Force labs and the Air Force is set up. In fact, they have, we talk about moon dust. Moon dust is real, whether you think they pick up UFOs or not. Moon dust as an entity is real. They're tasked with recovering what's called foreign technology. So if there was a satellite, a Russian satellite that crashed in Canada, right? I always love to pick on Canada because you're in Canada. There was a Russian satellite that crashed in Canada. I think it was in the 80s, 70s or the 80s. And so they sent a moon dust team out there on Air Force helicopters to go pick the satellite up and secure the reactor. The Canadian government got a little pissed off about it because we just kind of went in there and got it. But moon dust goes all over the world picking up foreign technology, right? So the Navy undertaking a massive UFO program, I find it highly unlikely. It would be kicked over to the Air Force or Space Force, but they're more satellites and rockets and stuff. It'd probably go to the Air Force.
Not the first time things have been picked up by your government in our country in Canada.
Well, there is a rather large UFO that crashed inside of Canadian territory. It's at the bottom of a Great Lake that can't seem to get at.
There was also a crash in Manitoba, I believe it between 1955 and 1958.
There are a
That
couple of them.
by the time the Canadian military showed up, the United States military was already there loading it in a transport or by helicopter. And when the Canadians military said, "Hey, you guys can't do that. This isn't your country. You can't just come in here and steal that." They said, "Well, we just did."
Yeah, pretty much. Something similar supposedly happened in the zone of silence in Chihuahua, Mexico. That a UFO crashed, and the Mexican army went out there to secure it. And they tried to cut it open, and they cut it open, and some kind of gas killed everybody. And so the Air Force took in two Jolly Green Giants and carried it out on a net between them back across the border into Texas. And the Mexican government was quite pissed off. No, we have a tendency, I mean, we always have, that when it comes to stuff like that, we just go secure it and take it. And if you have a problem with it, you can kind of fight us for it because nobody will.
Yeah, we all shake our fist. Damn you, Americans!
Yeah, but then we threaten to pull out of NATO, and everybody goes, no, 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 no.
Well,
I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't, as a person, I don't think that it's a particularly good idea. Me as a human, I think that it would have been far better to go to the Canadian government and say, hey, let's work this out and both profit from it, because we do jointly defend the airspace of North America, right, and the ground. I mean, if somebody invaded Canada, we're going to be up there. Somebody tried to take on your Navy, which is somewhat small. I mean, not, it's good. It's a very well trained Navy, but it's small. It lacks aircraft carriers and fleets of submarines. We go up there to take care of it with you guys. So I think that in that the information should have been shared, but I can't stop it. So I only know what I believe.
well, it does work. It does work for you guys.
It works for us.
But hey, we do know there are secrets being kept on this. What do you think is the biggest secret?
I think the very biggest secret of all is that there's not as much of this stuff as we think there is.
What about
That's what I think.
I want you to explain that. But first, what about the ties, though, where many people are believing that this has to do with other things where religion gets involved or the aliens aren't as nice as what we think
Well,
they are?
that's the Brookings study, right? The Brookings institution brought together eminent psychologists, psychiatrists, anthropologists, theologians, and they tried to analyze what would happen if the people of the earth, not just the United States. I mean, obviously, you worry about yourself first, but they came together and studied it for quite a while, and their conclusion is that there's a portion of the population that would accept it. There's a portion of the population which couldn't rationalize it and would deny it. And there was a portion of the population that would have an absolute meltdown because it would break all their beliefs. So that is supposedly the problem that they're trying to solve by covering it up. That and of course there's a national security element that if you do have extraterrestrial vehicles and you are back engineering them and you are getting technology from them, you don't really want to share that with anybody, and that goes for any country. If Canada had one and they were secretly back engineering it, it gave them a leap ahead of the United States or anybody else in NATO or the world, they would be hard pressed to want to tell the whole world about it either, right? I mean, I think that's just politics and national security. But yeah, some people would have a meltdown and breakdown because it would violate their fundamental religious beliefs or, their psychology.
Is it that fragile a subject?
Especially around religion, it can be. What do they say if you go to a Super Bowl party? What do they say you never talk about? You never talk about politics and religion, right? Because it's fundamental, and that's true of every culture in the world. If you're too ingrained in the religion, I mean, I'm not particularly religious. I'm more spiritual, but people who are religious, if you present them with something that violates the constraints of what they believe religiously, they do not react well. That's why wars have been fought over religion.
Very true. Very true. With about 2.5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour, Olav Phillips is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. How do we kind of push this subject forward? I mean, there is allegedly this big divide where half the people in Congress and elsewhere want this subject to come out. Other half does not. Where does this argument lie with you?
It's tricky because if it's a national security thing, it should be kept secret. But at the same time, if there's proof of extraterrestrial activities on the earth, we would benefit greatly as humanity would benefit greatly from having access to propulsion systems or energy, right? If they had some kind of clean energy, it would save us all. Right. So I think that it's kind of there's a duality to it. I think maybe releasing the stuff that could be beneficial to humanity while preserving the stuff that could be, beneficial from a national security point of view.
Is it that serious a national security point of view, though? If allegedly,
Well, you're in Canada, you're the Canadian Air Force, the United States Air Force, you've got vehicles flying through the sky. You don't know what they are, you don't know how they run, you don't know where they came from, and you can't shoot them down. I think that's a national security threat. Let's say
well,
you get your hands on one and they have some kind of super laser, that could be quite useful.
but
Sure, the
that's the thing,
Ukrainians
though.
would
We
love
don't,
it.
we don't know. I mean, yes,
Exactly.
look, those of us who've had experience, no,
Yeah,
you've had an
uh,
experience. You're
absolutely.
somebody. What a lot of people may not understand about you is you are somebody who is probably closer than majority of us to defining what's a UFO and what's a governmental UAP.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah. It's a very clear distinction for me. I know about drones, so but yeah, no, I mean, you can clearly define what a UAP is. I mean, both behaviorally and technically, you can very easily determine if a UAP is some kind of a terrestrial object. It's not hard at
Absolutely,
all.
which personally I believe all UAP are.
I believe all UAPs are terrestrial vehicles. Yeah,
Me too.
terrestrial built vehicles. Absolutely. I don't think from the Tic Tac on down, I don't think any of them are aliens. But I've seen UFO, like straight up UFOs.
Me too. Me
I know
too.
you have.
My friend, we're going to get you to hold on right there because we are going
Sure.
to go to break at the top of the hour. Olav Phillips here. Black Projects coming up next. Hidden Bases, a lot more. I love it when he's on. He's so knowledgeable. Spaced Out Radio continues after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, buddy. We are on a break for about 5.5 minutes. I'll be just going to disappear. I'll put you in the green room, okay?
One thing for the contrary, one.
Yep.
You'd be surprised where the Navy is. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, you can put me,
Including the moon.
Well, maybe.
Be right back. All right. back. I don't see Olav yet. Just going to quickly. We got 1 minute to go. Thank you, T-Bone, for being our lone super chat of the night. Greatly appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag, people. I'm waiting for my stuff to get here. I just ordered a bunch for myself. Yeah, Olav is awesome. He really is. All right. And go to cariboucon.com. Cariboucon.com. You can get your tickets there for September 18th through 20th. We're going to have a big Caribou Con event at the 108 Mile Ranch Historic Site. Many speakers, including Grant Cameron, yours truly. Merle will be there, Samantha Mowat, R. Keith Andrews, Brent Thomas from the Paranormal Portal, and more. Here we go. We are into hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is, I don't even know how to pronounce this. Salutaferis? Salutaferis is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, let's bring back Olav Phillips. We love him around here. Very knowledgeable person about weird, strange myths, theories, secret bases, secret societies, everything on the dark side of the books. And Olav, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem. I love coming on. You
I
have the
know you
best
do.
audience in the world.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you
Very
very much. I want to
And
ask
thank-
you, because
Yeah.
if anybody's going to know this, you're going to know the answer to this.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay. I heard this about a year and a half ago, and I've actually meant to bring this up to you, but
Okay.
I never have. And then all of a sudden during the break, I remembered I need to ask Olav about this.
All right.
So apparently there is a U.S. naval base somewhere near Lake Tahoe. And apparently it's alleged that there are submarines in that base and that there is some sort of underground tunnel that takes them to the Pacific Ocean. Have you ever heard this rumor before?
I have, and I'm very wary to believe that. Living in the Sierras, I've been to Tahoe many, many a time, and there is no Navy base on Lake Tahoe. There's some beaches. It's really cold. There might be a monster in it called Tessie, but it's not. I wouldn't think that there would be submarines in there in a Navy base. I don't know where that Navy base would be. Now, that being said, as one of the people in the chat room pointed out, there is a base in Fallon, which is not that far from Tahoe, but yeah, I find that unlikely. The more, if you're going to go down that route, the more realistic one would be that there supposedly is at one of the bases in Southern California, there is a tunnel that they run submarines through out to Area 51. I don't know how you would construct something like that without people knowing. That'd be a little vast, but that is a persistent rumor. And there are tunnels that they can run submarines to various places along the West Coast in California. But as far as the furthest I've heard it that makes any kind of sense is Vegas, out to Area 51 in Nellis. But to run an underwater tunnel up to Tahoe, you're talking about a massive incline, right? Because Tahoe is not at sea level. So, you're going to have to go up I forget how high it is, but probably 7,000 feet. And that would be tricky. That would be engineeringly tricky. So I highly doubt it, but I have heard that. But there's no Navy base that I've ever seen in Tahoe. Haven't been there.
It is one of those interesting topics indeed.
It is.
The secret bases, man.
There's a map that was done by a guy named Tall back in the 90s, which supposedly has a bunch of secret bases on it. I'll send you a copy of it.
Got a couple of questions here for you from our audience right off the bat here.
Sure.
Grandizer's asking, are you familiar with the secrets of the White Sands Missile Range?
At least some of them, yeah. They're supposedly, well, there's definitely been not gun camera footage, but ground camera footage of interesting objects flying around White Sands. There is a persistent story that there was a landing at White Sands. I want to say the one at White Sands was the source of the landing sequence in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think that supposedly took place at White Sands, and that Eisenhower was out there. But yeah, there have been multiple landings supposedly and technical exchanges. I think the guys that supposedly went to Serpo left from White Sands.
Let's go to another question.
Sure.
Let's go to T-Bone. Olav, do you think psionics is a UFO fad?
Well, psionics is different than UFOs. I think there's something to psionics. It's something that both us and the Soviets experimented with. And there's been some compelling scientific research around psionics. So I think there's definitely something to psionics, but psionics is not a strictly UFO thing.
What do you think it is then?
Well, it's mind stuff, like remote viewing, right? You could argue is a form of psionics. Like machinery that powers psychic phenomenon, stuff like that. Being able to the KGB claim that they could stop people's hearts at distance. That they could have a guy in Siberia stop the heart of somebody in Turkey, right, by willing it. That's like psionic warfare.
Do you believe the power of the mind can do that?
Yes, I actually do.
So do I.
Yeah. And I think they've done it. Both us and the Soviets at the time, and now the Russians.
Well, it also goes to show, though, Olav, I mean, you get a lot of these people, and Grant Cameron has talked to a lot of these people who make claims that they've flown the craft. When they've been taken, they have flown the craft. And one of the things that they state is that the craft is almost like biological. And it connects with your mind. So if all of a sudden you, as the pilot, want to say, take this craft to see the rings of Saturn, or go feel the heat coming off the sun near Venus, you can do that. It's kind of incredible how this kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, there are persistent stories about there's a type of drone UFO that is more biological or organic. And it's interesting because back in the day, I did a series of reports about a supposed UFO that crashed in Tracy, California. I actually got on UFO Hunters for it, but one of the things that we were told, there was a mysterious fax that was sent to the radio show that I was working with at the time, and called Ground Zero. And the fax said that the object was detected by a new type of satellite that used actually an organic uh, eye, for lack of a better term. And it was tracked using this, and then they fired a kinetic kill vehicle from an F-18 off the coast that hit the thing and forced it to crash. And there was supposedly a laser shot from Lawrence Livermore. But what's interesting is that the in the facts it talked about a series of surveillance satellites that used organic equipment to actually detect these things when they come inbound.
Do you think we do have radar satellites right now that are specifically trained on spotting UFOs coming in?
You know, um, I'm sure if UFOs are real, and I believe they are, I'm sure that us and the Russians and the Chinese have satellites that are watching for them. A lot of them, when they come in and they come in and cross into the atmosphere, they're detected by something called a DSP satellite. Those are were predominantly orbited to detect missile launches for World War III. And that's how they track them, is using the DSP network. So those are the supposed fast walkers that come in from outside and come into the atmosphere of the Earth. But if the fast walker things are real and they are, they're, whether it's a breakaway civilization or UFOs or whatever it is, I would imagine that some of those DSP satellites have been retasked, or they've sent up more satellites that would look outward. I mean, we know that they have satellites that look outward because they watch for asteroids. There's a whole asteroid defense network that exists where it watches for asteroids coming toward the Earth. So you could use that for the same thing, or that could be a cover for the satellites that are looking outward for UFOs.
Speaking of space, there is a lot of intrigue that you have stated over this show over the years, that you believe that we already have the ability to have bases on places like the moon and Mars.
Yeah.
Before we go any deeper on that, why do you believe this, for people who may not heard your dissertation about this?
Well, is in the 50s, right? The U.S. Army came out with a project called Project Horizon. It was super classified at the time, and they believed that by 1958 that they could build a base on the moon using pressurized Quonset huts that could hold 100, I don't know what you call them, like astronaut soldiers. The Air Force, not to be outdone, came out with a one called Lunex, which was supposedly able to be put on the moon by 1959. And then the Russians, the Soviets, you should make that distinction. The Soviets came out with a plan called Zvezda, which was supposed to do the same thing around 1958, 1959. And I've heard enough interesting information over the years to believe that it is possible. And you also have these tracks on the moon that John Lear talked about a lot, transient light phenomenon that exists on the moon, where astronomers who are watching the moon with telescopes will, and by the way, NASA has a database of this, but they report lights moving across the surface of the moon, right? And John Lear correlated some of them to supposed tracks. In the case of Mars, if you can put a base on the moon, you can put a base on Mars, right? Um, the main thing that has always made me believe that we actually do have something there is that in the back of my book, The Secret Space Age, and I think I put it into the Cold War in Space as well. There's a photo I got from NASA, and I did a test, and I showed this photo to a bunch of people, and I asked them, "What do you see?" And pretty much uniformly, they said that they saw a mansion that they figured it was in Laguna. And I showed them a black and white version, not the color version, which is all red. But they figure it was somewhere in Southern California or Laguna specifically. And I would tell them, no, this is actually built into the side of a canyon on Mars. It's a it's bizarre. It's built in the side of the canyon. It's perfectly smooth, has a black dome on the top. It's a square built in the side of a canyon wall. It has like a triangular pad out in front of it, and it's completely anomalous. Like I've never seen anything on in any photo of Mars short of the monolith graveyard out by the poles, or the monolith on Phobos, that ever convinced me that there's something artificial on Mars. This thing is completely out of place. It's perfectly smooth. It's literally got a dome that's reflecting the sunlight. So you see things like that, and some of the other anomalous stuff like the graveyard that exists up but I think it's the North Pole in Mars, and you ask yourself, what is that, right? So, and I also, I really enjoy Richard Hoagland's work, and he has some very compelling photos that are that were taken using different spectrums, so you can see these lattice works of structures. It's not all the face on Mars or the DNM pyramid or whatever. There's also shots that were taken by rovers and by other machinery that we sent out there that takes pictures, and you can see these lattice works that exist. So there's got to be something to it. So, I definitely think that it's possible. It's likely, given what I've seen.
So if let's say this is possible, let's say
Mhm.
that we have people right now on the moon, or we have people right now on Mars.
Right.
Okay, the question that I have for you regarding that then is, how did we get there? Because we're still tinkering with rocket designs here, public.
Yeah, publicly. The trick is that you got to look at DARPA. And I asked a guy I knew that worked in DARPA. I didn't ask him to expose anything, but I asked him a simple question. I said, "Look, you worked in DARPA. You saw some of you saw some of the programs in DARPA. How far ahead is DARPA from the commercial world?" And he thought about it for a long time. And he said, "Well, based on what I've seen, probably 50 years." But he said, "There's stuff out there that I've heard about while I was working in it that's probably 100 years in advance of what you see in the commercial world." Right. And I go back to Ben Rich, that he spoke at a Caltech alumni dinner, and this has been corroborated by dozens of people. And he said he's the former head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, and he said, "Not only do I have the technology to take ET home, but I have the contract." And Ben Rich was an engineer. He was not the kind of person that would make that stuff up. And he wanted a mic drop, and he said, not only literally, I'm literally quoting him, "Not only do I have the technology to take ET home, I have the contract." That is a very significant statement for the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works.
I would agree with you on that. And to this day, like, if you take Jim Goodall to bring his name up again, he was friends with Ben Rich. Ben
Right.
Rich had Jim Goodall's books sitting right on his desk for anybody to read,
Right.
and they would talk about once a month. And Ben never regretted saying that.
No. And I believe that it's the truth. Now, what that actually means, I have no idea. I mean, nobody could, right? I'm not part of that special access program, and I don't have that kind of clearance. So, I can only guess and postulate what he meant, but I think he was pretty clear. And, you can make an argument, well, how would we get there, right? Which is the logical question. If you take the secret space program stuff off the table, the number of unscheduled and secret and top secret launches out of Vandenberg and Canaveral carrying military payloads over the last 50 years, there's enough of them that you could have easily assembled things in orbit and never known. I mean, a lot of shuttle missions were classified, right? And you have to ask yourself something. We talk a lot about this kind of stuff, and you know, everybody's all over not weaponizing space. Well, the Soviets fielded, I think, six separate um, battle stations that they put into orbit. Now they were small; they're called the Almaz, but the first one had a recoilless cannon. And it went up from there, and I think the last one had a laser. I worked with a guy who was in the Soviet Air Force, and he told me point blank, he's like, Star Wars is real. And he said, all that stuff that you guys put up there, we put it up there too. So there's a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff floating around up there, at least according to this guy. And he worked at the facility he worked at was what's called a Cosmodrome. It's kind of like a launch complex like Cape Canaveral or Vandenberg. And he was there when they launched the rockets carrying the Soviet Star Wars system in orbit. And they launched something called the Polya Skiff, which was had lasers and rail guns and nuclear weapons on it. And supposedly it crashed, but nobody ever saw it crash. And it was huge. It's the size of a space shuttle. For all we know, it's still floating around up there. I mean, you've got, the rods from God, Thor's hammer, kinetic energy weapons up there and all kinds of stuff, brilliant pebbles and lasers. And,
What about the Black Knight satellite? What do you think about that?
I actually wrote a story about this in the Ark of the Covenant and other ancient secret weapons. And I postulated at the time that, and I still believe that it's a spent munitions platform from a war that, according to the Vedas, occurred about 14,000 years ago. And it was a war between two brothers. And at the end of it, the one brother decided he had fought the other brother long enough. And so he detonated some kind of super weapon and destroyed the other brother's city. And there's actually a crater in India, and this is very famous. They go out, a lot of people think it was a nuclear weapon, and they go out there and they take, readings of the radiation, but the radiation doesn't really, it's not elevated. I mean, it should be, but it's not. But if you read the Veda, what it actually talks about is that the brother, when he sent the doomsday weapon to kill his brother, um, they describe it as a pillar of fire that came from the sky. And then when it hit the ground, it exploded in a fireball. And if you read about the ideas around whether it exists or not, the ideas around um, Thor's hammer, the rods from God, is that they're these tungsten rods that are released from orbit, and they have a special kind of sheathing on them that, as they go through the atmosphere, they heat up and they become a kind of plasma. And when the kinetic energy weapon hits the ground, the sheathing shatters and throws balls of fire everywhere. And if you look at what a kinetic energy weapon from orbit would do in that context, and you compare it to what's talked about in the Veda, it's like 1 to 1. So I figure that the Black Knight satellite's actually the weapons platform that fired it. And what it does is, when it sees new things in orbit, it's well known to come around and take a look. And it takes a look and analyzes it, probably has some kind of AI on it, analyzes, says, you know what, you may be a threat, but I've got no ammunition left. So I'm going to leave and go back to L2 or L3, which are gravitationally neutral places in the solar system, where the gravitational pull of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun are at equilibrium. So you can sit out there with very low power consumption and hold your position in space and not be pulled toward the Sun or pulled toward the Earth or pulled toward the Moon. So, and you just kind of sit out there gravitationally neutrally. So I think it goes back there to hide.
Olav, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Hard to believe we only have
Sure.
half an hour left with Olav
Okay.
Phillips tonight. as we love it when he's on here. We'll figure out. We'll take some more audience questions and figure out next where we're going. It'll probably be into some deep, dark, secret area. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, buddy, we're clear.
Okay.
Always fun when you're here, my man.
Yeah, it's going okay. Everybody's enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good. Got to get some more super chats going on.
Oh. We can try. We can try.
Gnomes. Well, I'm Scandinavian, so. Yeah, I love the Black Knight. I wrote an entire chapter in that book about it. It's just weird how it comes in, goes out. You know, it was when they launched Sputnik, the ground radar actually watched an object come in behind and follow the orbit of Sputnik for a couple revolutions before it took off.
Yeah.
And they were all, yeah, they thought it was a rocket booster, but then they launched Explorer 1, which was, you know, the US's version of Sputnik. And it came down and followed Explorer 1 a couple times and then took off. So yeah, they actually got it on some kind of ground-based radar. No, I like that one. Yeah, I got to start writing more. I got a topic in mind. It's not secret space program though. It's something entirely more weird.
I love the secret space program talk, man.
I know you do. I've been peddling that stuff for years now.
I
Well,
know.
I think I have a different perspective than most people. You know.
I think you have a good perspective on it, though.
Well, I try to root it in facts and logic. You know. I don't know how they do the crewing though. I figure they have one of the suborbital vehicles. Bring them up and down. I don't believe the 30 and back though.
I could have like a week of shows with you and you only just talking about all of this. I could.
There you go. Well, I try. I try to be entertaining and fun.
Oh, dude, you are that. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
You have a very interesting chat.
They're good people in there, though.
They
They're
really
good.
are. They really are. They ask good questions.
I think it's we're lucky. We're very lucky to have the people that we have in here.
You really are.
It is a blessing, my man. It truly is a blessing.
Oh, somebody doesn't buy into the secret space program stuff.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, what is the secret space program fundamentally? Right? It's launching secret things into space. And there's a ridge out here I can go because we're the way we're aligned. You know, we're not actually, I think we're less than 200 miles from Area 51. And during the summer, sometimes I go out there and I'll sit out there and you can watch that stuff climbing out of Area 51 at full power going up into the sky. So they are at a minimum suborbital. There's some crazy stuff that comes out of that place. And you can see
But
it.
if you want to see it, though, you can't go on the weekends.
You know, honestly, actually, they do it at all kinds of different days of the week. We actually, for a long time when I lived in the Bay Area, we had we had a vehicle that would come in on Tuesdays at about 9 p.m. And it would come in, and one day, and it would kind of come in from the west and then go north. And one day I got curious. So it comes in like
We only got
clockwork
about
around.
10 seconds, buddy.
I'll tell you the story in the air. It's funny.
Yeah, let's do it. Coming back in 3 seconds. We're into the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We got Olav Phillips on the air. We're going to get into some deep, dark secrets that you may not know about. Reminder to all of you, though, that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here he is, Olav Phillips, final time tonight. We're going to start off with a couple of audience questions, if you don't mind, my brother.
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right. Let's go to T-Bone. Are you going to go through the Hopkinsville Goblin case? What's your opinion on that?
Oh gosh, that's some high weirdness 14 stuff. No, I actually buy into it. I mean, it's it's actually the basis of Hellier even. But no, it's very interesting, especially the fact that they shot up their entire house trying to defend themselves from it. Nobody's going to do that if there's not something going on. But yeah, I totally buy into the Hopkinsville thing. But there's a lot of weird stuff that lives in caves. That's all I got to say.
Here's my question about it. And this is what intrigues me. I'm not saying this to question the narrative, but it intrigues me. Okay. And that is this. A lot of these creatures that we only see once.
Right.
These alleged creatures really haven't come back to the same extent.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the key arguments about creatures like that is that they're interdimensional. And that's why they're 14. But maybe they still exist inside the caves. A lot of these it's like the Fresno Nightcrawler or the Fresno Nightcrawler.
Yes.
The pants. Yeah, the Fresno Nightcrawler.
The MC Hammer pants.
Yeah. I actually am not that far from Fresno right now. But it gets seen occasionally, right? But apparently, and I'm researching this, that apparently it originated in Yosemite and that there are stories that go back all the way to the indigenous people that lived in Yosemite about it. So I've been looking into that. But I think they do come back. I think that we just don't necessarily see them or we don't go where they are. Right. Because the goblins supposedly lived in caves. You'd have to go down into the caves to find them. And there are other cases where goblins that looked like those at Hopkinsville, they came out and other people have seen them. It's not a one-off. I mean, even the Mothman, it gets seen occasionally. It's not common.
I like that. All right, let's go to another one here. Let's go to Paramarv. Is there anything to the tack marks on the back of the roadsides that supposedly lead military to bases, hospitals, etc.?
I don't know. I'll have to look into that one. That's interesting. I'll look into that. I never really thought about that, but I'll look into it.
I don't understand that question. What are the tack?
Well, supposedly there are markings. There are markings on the road that you don't really notice that indicate where there could be like fallout shelters. A lot of that stuff comes back from the Cold War. right? That you take the Russians for example. When the Russians laid out their version of the interstate system, right? They actually laid out huge, and we did it here too. That there are huge stretches of wide interstate freeways where you could land bombers on them using the roads. And so there are markings where there are caches of things or bunkers or other stuff. There's markers in the roads that somebody who knows what to look for would look for. And then they know, okay, the bunker's over here.
Right.
There's a whole hidden language for like hidden things. But in the Soviet Union, Russia, they're like I said, their interstates are laid out. They actually have like parking lots that are berms that were designed to store fighters. And we did the same thing on our interstate system. That there are portions of the interstate system where they could be converted into airfields if we were invaded. They do it in Europe too.
Let's go to another question.
Sure.
Let's go over to K17.
Mhm.
Do we actually have bases on the moon and Mars?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, right? I don't know for sure. All I know is what I've seen and what I've researched. And I what the research says is that the two superpowers, the Soviets, now Russians, and the United States were very, very interested in doing it and had programs that were feasible to do it. And there is some evidence that there are activities that we're unaware of on the moon and Mars. And let's not forget, Apollo 20, whatever you think of Apollo 20, the vehicle that they supposedly entered, this massive UFO that crash landed on the moon, you can actually find that thing in NASA photography. It is there. You just have to look for it. You have to know where it is and look for it. And oddly, not far away from it is actually one of the Luna rovers that the Soviets sent up. One of they're like 8-wheeled rovers that they launched. There's actually one sitting not far from where this thing is. And when you see it in actual NASA photos that you can download from the NASA website, right? You start to become suspicious of why is there a lunar like explorer rover, sitting not far from that with a radio beacon that's still running. Makes you wonder. But I've seen evidence of the activities and in a couple of cases the installations, and that's why I believe that it's possible. But I don't know for sure. I
Well,
just
let's
know what
hit
I've
the
seen.
brakes here for a second because you're making me geek out here a little bit because I really want to believe the Apollo 18, 19, 20 missions, where
Right.
allegedly this is where a humanoid alien female that has been dubbed the Mona Lisa was found.
Right, with the third eye, I might add.
Yes.
Who looked Mayan. She looks Mayan, actually. Yes. What do you want to geek out about it?
Well, for our audience who may not know about this conspiracy theory, let's
Sure.
talk about it.
Okay, so according to this guy, Commander Rutledge, right, who was supposedly living in Rwanda, he released a series of videos that were shot supposedly on Apollo 20, and it was a combination of a Soviet and American mission. And Apollo 18 and Apollo 19 had mechanical problems, and I think 19 like crashed, but 20 got there. And this combination crew of people, Rutledge, Leonov, and somebody else, I think one or two other people, they supposedly went out to this massive crash UFO and recovered the head. They got into where the cockpit was and they recovered this woman and they recovered the head of the other pilot. There were two pilots, a man and a woman, and she was wearing some kind of a suit that looks, when you see it, it looks like it has like um, microchips on it and circuitry. And so there are a couple reasons why I think the footage may be real, but it was supposedly attributed Well, it was attributed to a performance artist in France who claimed that he faked it. The problem is that there's little things that he never would have thought of. For example, I was talking about the Luna rover that the Russians, the Soviets had sent up. And at one point, when Rutledge is running the camera inside the LEM, right, he takes it up to one of the triangular windows and he pushes it up against it to look out. And in the distance, you see one of these Soviet rovers sitting there, the one that's near the crash site. And that makes a lot of sense because if they wanted to find it easily, they would have locked onto the radio transponder on that rover to land next to the rover because the rover is next to the UFO. And most likely the Soviets had driven it over there to take a look at it. Right. The the second thing that was interesting is that he claimed that he built a LEM in like a warehouse. But there are little details. For example, in that triangular window, there's a series of markings. It's actually a kind of altimeter, right, that you can use to kind of figure out what your altitude is as you're descending. NASA actually etched those into the glass. It's not like they used ink. It's actually etched into the glass. Well, the one that you see in the video is etched into the glass. And if he was a performance artist, these are little things that they wouldn't have necessarily he wouldn't have necessarily picked up on, right? He may have, but the most interesting thing is that again, I was doing Ground Zero. We ran that thing by a mortician, and I actually did a show with the mortician on the line, and he said that when he watched the video, that the body had a film on it, and he said that that film is actually very normal for a dead body. And he said that obviously he didn't know because it was in a video, right? But he said, if I had to guess, that's an actual dead body. And the reason being is that this coating, and it's a weird kind of whitish coating. And so what that is that that's the waxes and films inside your body. When you die, your body basically excretes them through your pores, and it creates this kind of like waxy shell over the dead body. He's like, you can see it right there. And I ran it through an effects guy that I knew that did practical effects. He even worked on like Carnosaur. Anyway, he took a look at that video and he's like, the weightlessness that you're seeing in the video and the movements and the other stuff, he's like, I don't know how you would do that practically, without wires and other stuff that this guy didn't have the capability to remove, not when he shot that video. And the effects, two effects guys that I talked to said that they believed that it was actually real. But the lunar rover, I think, was what really did it for me. That, and I found the UFO site using the position of the Luna rover. I found the UFO site in actual NASA photography. And the people who were supposedly on board it, the famous ones like Leonov, who was very famous in the Soviet Union, he attended a quote unquote conference during the time when he should have been on that mission. And nobody actually knew where he was when that mission occurred. He had disappeared off the face of the earth, quite literally.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like if you take the sum of the parts, that it equals a very interesting thing. But if you look at individual pieces, and there is footage that Rutledge released that is total horse shit. That it's not real. It's so blatantly not real. But there's a bunch of it that actually is real looking. And from the experts that I talked to, and the research that I did, it appears to have been possible and probable that Apollo 20 did occur. And there was an unscheduled launch. There were two unscheduled launches at that time. One was from Vandenberg and one was from Plazhetsky, the top secret cosmodrome in or no, yeah, it was Plazhetsky, which was emptied out, by the way. They sent all the technicians from this cosmodrome. They actually sent them to fight in the Ukraine. Which I don't know if that was a good idea to send a bunch of engineers to be frontline soldiers, but that's another
Oh my.
conversation. Yeah, they
And
cleaned out the whole. It's like taking all the scientists and technicians out of Cape Canaveral and sending them as frontline shock troops to the Ukraine. It doesn't make any sense.
does anything make sense? Doesn't have to.
No,
Let's go to another audience question here.
sure.
Let's go to toe tag. Is today's THAAD missile system a part of a Star Wars technology?
Well, I guess you could argue that it is at some level. I mean, the original design of Star Wars did have ground-based interception missiles, right? That were controlled by using satellites that were in orbit. I mean, Star Wars wasn't strictly, brilliant pebbles and lasers and the rods from God. There were ground-based elements too that were controlled. If you watch the original animations that Lockheed put out at the time in General Dynamics.
All right, moving on. Tim Mothman and his goatee would like to know, are goblins and gnomes related in your opinion? A little bit off topic here.
No, it's fine. I think it's hard to say, right? Because the concept of a gnome versus a goblin, in Norse countries, goblins and gnomes are different, right? But in some other Germanic countries, goblins and gnomes are kind of seen in the same way culturally. I guess the answer to that really depends on the cultural context that you're looking at it from, right? I happen to believe they're separate. Gnomes occupy a separate space, that they're a kind of a spirit creature that kind of hangs around, and every Scandinavian household has a gnome, and you always know the gnome is messing with you because it'll hide your keys and stuff. So, and that has happened to me. I don't want to get into it on the air, but I had a very specific thing happen to me that I do believe was a gnome, and doing it for my own good.
Well, always keep a gnome and fairy garden around your property. It
Dude,
just
take
makes
care.
things safer just in case.
Yeah, they're protective. I definitely am very happy to have one, and I'm very grateful for my gnome. Never seen him though.
No, I don't know if I want to see it either. I don't know.
I think I
That would
saw a
just be
troll.
trippy.
I think I
That would
saw a
just be
troll.
a little bit trippy.
I think I saw a troll once, but it's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Question from the unknown here. Some researchers and commentators have suggested that certain isotopic ratios, surface features, or radiation readings on Mars could be interpreted as nuclear related. Any opinion?
Yeah, I forget that guy's name, but he claims that there was a nuclear war on Mars. He had some pretty compelling evidence, if I recall, in his book. He wrote a book about it. And I think there was some pretty compelling evidence that the radiation, the radiation and isotopic levels in various places on Mars indicated that there was some kind of a nuclear exchange. But, it would have had to have happened 10,000, a million years ago. So
Right.
I don't know that you can concretely prove it, but he makes a very good argument for it.
Dr. John Brandenburg believes
That's
that
it.
there's more than enough evidence to.
Yeah, that's it. His book is very compelling. But, I try to approach things from the point of view that if I can't prove it to you concretely, I'm going to tell you. And I can't prove it to you concretely. I mean, it looks good on paper. It makes sense, but it would rip away the atmosphere and cause nuclear winter and all kinds of nastiness, destroy the ozone layer. And it would, it should, given its position, it's inside the Goldilocks zone. So it should have liquid water. It should have a thicker atmosphere, but it doesn't. So something obviously happened.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. We got 5 minutes to go with you as this
Okay.
show has flown on by. It really has.
It has.
A lot of people are thinking about UFOs right now because at the beginning of the year, we usually are in some sort of lull around this topic. But James
Sure.
Fox, movie director, is holding a press conference at the National Press building in Washington, D.C. on January 20th. I'm
Right.
just curious what your thoughts is of this, where he's going to bring in some people and scientists and doctors from Virginia in Brazil,
Right.
from that famous case. Going to be bringing people to others. He's apparently talked to Congress people about this topic. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's interesting. If I recall, he's the one that did the program, which talks about the special access programs. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. You know, there are certain people that tend to do better presentations and have better witnesses. You know, like Leslie Keene when she brings out, the military pilots. And it's much more compelling and interesting. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Do you think it's necessary?
I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it's definitely interesting to watch. Yeah, I don't think it's going to. I think disclosure is a fallacy. I mean, remember what I said. I think the real secret is that there's not as much of this stuff as you think. I don't think that there are these massive programs. I don't think that disclosure will ever happen. In fact, I think it's engineered against disclosure. So we've done shows. I just don't buy disclosure. And I think that some of these guys that, when you read these emails that various UFO personalities, it's like, well, I email Leon Panetta. Okay, did you ever actually read the email? It's this UFO all-star saying, Leon, we need to get together to talk about UFOs. And then you see the notes that Panetta sent to his executive assistant said, just ignore this guy. It's a fallacy. I think most disclosure, I think a lot of people want it, but I think most of this disclosure hubbub is to sell books. I don't think it'll ever happen. And honestly,
So basically, what you're saying is you think the topic has gone too mainstream.
yeah, I think it's become a cash cow. And I just, the question you have to ask yourself is, what actually are you disclosing? Now, there's an easy answer, but is that the real answer? Right. Well, I'm disclosing the existence of UFOs. What is that exactly? I'm here to tell you that the UAPs that you guys see in these videos that were declassified by the Pentagon, and you listen to Luis Elizondo, whose book was edited by the Pentagon, why do you think they don't have a vested interest? Well, I'm here to tell you all that stuff is terrestrial. There's nothing alien about any of that stuff, the Tic Tac or any of it. But what are you disclosing? Right? How do we know? I mean, what you disclosed? Okay, I recovered bodies from Roswell. Did we? We've been fighting about this since 1947. Nobody's ever been able to prove anything about it. What was it really? We don't know. So it's all hyperbole. What is disclosure? I know what Greer says disclosure is, but how do we know he's right? What, because he talked to a few people? Leon Panetta blew him off multiple times. These other people, Gersten and these other people, they got zero traction. No matter what they say, if you go look at the actual emails, all these guys got zero traction. None. They're talking about it in Congress because you have a generation of congressmen that believe in it, believe that UFOs might be real, and they want to get to the bottom of it. But have they been able to do it? Was Clinton able to do it? Clinton very famously said, I want to know everything about Roswell. Obama said, I want to know everything about Roswell. Donald Trump was going to release everything. Where is it? I mean, it's nowhere. I mean, Clinton was rejected access to Area 51. He wanted to go to Area 51. They actually rejected his giving him the clearance to go to Area 51.
Sounds so strange.
Now, I do believe that UFOs are real, and I do believe they are covering up some stuff, but the voluminous of it, I think, is actually very small. But I do believe in Lazar.
Olav, great having you back on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. It is always a fun time, and we'll have you on soon again.
Absolutely. Anytime, Dave. I love you guys.
Olav Phillips, everybody. Swamp Dweller, and the Weird News of the Week next. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. Great job tonight, buddy.
Thanks. It was okay.
You were fantastic as per usual. Our audience loves you.
Okay. Well, I love them too.
All right, buddy. We'll talk
All right,
soon.
man. Talk soon. Bye.
Take care. Olav Phillips, everybody. Love him. Be right back. Terry, I got you, by the way. All right. I am back. And let's see here. bring Terry in. How's the mustache?
Good evening, sir. How's the beard?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Excited to have you here.
Good show, Dave, by the way.
Yeah. Olav is just a power show every time he's on.
He sure is, man. And he just kind of lets it fly, don't he?
Warden Dragon, how you doing? Metal Gaming, no, I haven't seen any UFOs lately. I have been looking, but I haven't spent a lot of time outside. It gets kind of cold here outside in wintertime.
Kind of cold.
Right?
I love how understated you are, Dave. Kind of cold in the Great White North. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Joe, how you doing? In Brazil, how you doing, brother? Hope you're well.
You know, dude, your chat always asks the best questions. I think one of the best ones I saw this evening was, did Kim Jong-un really do a dance on the moon? I mean, did he dance Gangnam Style up there or not?
Right. All right. Big thank you to T-Bone with a natural hat trick of super chats. Paramarv, Mel WD40, and Benno from Oz. Thank you guys for the great super chats. Appreciate your love. Our store is always open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Guess what, guys? We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag. Here we go with the third hour. We are into the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Salutiferous. Salutiferous is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. This story occurred when I was 15, and I was a member of the Boy Scouts, so this would be around 2012. My troop got together and decided to go camping for the weekend, something we did fairly often. The camp we chose didn't have many people or cars around and was rather secluded. Having no worry of other campers in the area, we made a giant campfire and had a late night. When our campfire finally died out, we went to our tents to get some much-needed rest. Strangely, this night, I was unable to sleep because I was just laying there for some reason. I was listening to the sounds of nature around my tent, hoping to fall asleep. It was right when I was dozing off that I heard something near our campsite. There was a very loud rustling in the forest that was quickly making its way towards our campsite. After a minute of movement, I heard something stop about 7 or so feet away from my tent, before suddenly darting off into the forest. My mind racing and paralyzed by fear, I was scrambling to think of what could have been at the campsite. In time, my brain rationalized it was probably one of the adults checking on us, and as such, I relaxed for a little bit, listening to the sound slowly move off into the distance. It wasn't long after this that I crashed. It was some time late in the middle of the night when I noticed once again that I awoke to something wandering around our camp. It was close, but eventually it went off towards the same direction as the noise did the previous time. Too curious for my own good, I looked out the mesh window of my tent. It was then that I froze in terror. There was a huge, black figure standing near the tent that was way too large to be any of the other scouts. It had no flashlight and just stood there menacingly, looking around the camp. I tried to calm myself as I watched the figure unzip another tent, seemingly peering in before a high-pitched scream was heard. This immediately woke everyone else up, who started coming out of their tents and freaking out. The figure itself darted into the forest, never to be seen again. The adults soon checked on us, and when questioned, many of the other boys mentioned a figure that looked like it could have been a man wearing dark clothing. Unfortunately, though, none of us could get a good enough view to be sure. The other scouts also mentioned hearing the rustling in the grass. Disturbed at this news, we were all moved to the adult campsite, where they all slept in shifts, watching in case this creeper returned. The following morning, we left after our chaperones alerted the park rangers and sheriff. We never returned to that site, and from what I understand, they never found the guy that was lurking in our camp, if it was a guy at all.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, you can head on over to Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories there for you to listen to each and every night. So we're starting a new little fad here on Spaced Out Radio. Why? Because I want to add some fun to the show. And there's nobody better that I have fun with on the air than this guy, Terry Hall. And we're going to get into the weird stories of the week. Here we go.
Terry Hall's got a mustache, damn and proud and bold. Girl, like a question mark, got secrets to be told. When you folks, Bigfoot tracks, ghosts that won't behave. He's going to the closet way. We do something weak, yes, strange, yes, wild. For the answers of the enemy to the unexplained falls. With Terry Hall and Paul, we can stand in the small. I'm spaced out radio. Let the day start. Stop it all.
Rocking his way in, Terry Hall. It's good to have you here on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful this evening, oh beard of knowledge. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm not too bad. The mustache of knowledge. You throw your mustache in the song, right?
Yes, I do. I dig that song, man. Like I said, I told you earlier, it reminds me of Queen, and they're one of my favorites. So you topped the knot. I mean, that's awesome, Dave. You're such a talented individual.
So in this new segment that we're going to do here is, I figure, you know what? Let's have some fun. We don't do a lot of fun on this show because we try and take these subjects pretty seriously that we go with. But we do the new weird news of the week, and I actually enjoy doing that. So in the third hour, to change things up a little bit, yes, we are going to get into some UFO stories. Yes, we're going to get into some cryptid stories. But we're also going to bring in stories that are just strange around the world, Terry.
There's enough strangeness out there, Dave. I think that we could do this once a day, every day for the next 10 years, and I don't think we get caught up yet.
I would agree. I would totally agree with that. Where do you want to start tonight?
Actually, I ran across one, and I mentioned it to you. You know the stories of Florida Man, right?
Yes.
Heard the stories of Florida Man. Well, I was I was perusing the headlines the other day, and it just so happens, now this is a story about gun control. We're going to get political this evening, Dave, because they've had 3 separate road rage incidents in Florida where one of the 2 people involved in a road rage incident actually fired a missile.
What?
An RPG at another driver. So, are you for gun control or against gun control, Dave? Road rage incidents where people are actually firing RPGs at one another, and of course, it happened in Florida.
Goodness. I mean, how does that even work? Like, you know what? Look, I am somebody who's very pro firearms. I used to be on the opposite side of that ledger. But at no point would I think I need to buy myself an RPG and then have a little bit of road rage and fire it at someone.
Well, not only buy an RPG, but actually haul it around with you as you drive it around town. Where do you even get an RPG from?
I don't know.
Back in the day, one of the things I used to be able to get were star shells for an underbarrel grenade launcher, right? And they were starburst shells, kind of like big flares. And I mean, those things, but even back 20 years ago, those things were $150 a round. I can't imagine what a round of RPG costs.
My goodness. That just, I don't even know how that works.
Would you be on the good list or the bad list if you asked Santa Claus for some rounds for your RPG?
I don't know. Like, can you imagine having one of those neighbors that just bugs you, and then all of a sudden, you just decide one day that you're going to bring out the old RPG and launch it, and put a nice little hole inside the front door of your neighbor's house.
Kind of brings in a meeting to say hello to my little friend, huh?
Right? Oh my goodness, that is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, my friend.
And another story on the other end of the country, though, and I just saw it come out today. There was apparently new evidence that appeared that is pointing to a new location for Atlantis. Have you heard about that yet?
No, read us the story.
Well, it's two of our favorite people. It's Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. Randall, in doing some more research, is now pointing at the Azores as the location for Atlantis. It's on the mid-Atlantic ridge. And according to the records and what people have been looking at, they've always said that it's west of the Pillars of Hercules. Well, that's pointing towards the Azores, which brings in another question as far as civilization on planet Earth in cyclic, what they're calling now, basically cyclic resets, where we're having these cataclysms here, kind of on not so much like a schedule where it's predictable, but it is to a certain point, because from what they're showing now with the evidence that they currently have, there's a very good chance that Atlantis was real. What's been your thoughts about Atlantis and this whole cyclic resets that happens to us?
Oh goodness. I kind of bite my tongue a little bit with Atlantis, because I do believe it was a place. I do believe that at one point it was here. But there is zero proof outside of some hieroglyphics that it was more technologically advanced or as technologically advanced of what we have. Where is it? Where did it go? Why can't we pinpoint it? There's about 72 locations on Earth that people say Atlantis is there. Yes, I'm over exaggerating there a little bit. But I mean, we've heard that it's been off the coast of Bimini. We've heard it's been in the Mediterranean, near the Persian Gulf, wherever it may be. Okay. Where is it? Why don't we have it? We have more proof of biblical happenings than we do of Atlantis. And I just find that a little weird. Look, I love the story. I do. I think there's more of a story in thinking that maybe some sort of ancient aliens helped build the planet than Atlantis being this, this mecca of technological advancement, 100,000 years ago or a million years ago, wherever it was. Your thoughts?
I do believe that prior to that before, well, let's just say that they're pointing at the Younger Dryas period as the last reset for us. It kind of sort of makes sense. Timeline fits. Göbekli Tepe kind of rewrote the book as far as how they're saying quote unquote civilization started, because with the Göbekli Tepe, it's showing that hunter-gatherers were still the thing, but what really caused them to come together was some sort of belief or faith in something bigger. And so they didn't start planting crops and so forth and then build the temple. They started building the temple, and out of necessity started planting crops and settling down. And if the way that I think about this whole cyclic reset thing, Dave, is they know that the ocean's, 400 feet deeper now than they were back about that period in time. And if there was something that made the ocean jump up 400 feet, anything that would have been prior technology is probably under about a mile's worth of silt at the bottom of the ocean.
I agree.
Really, the only thing that would have been left standing were the great monuments and machines that they built prior, like the Great Pyramids and things like that. So I think that if you believe in the Bible and the written record in the Bible, well, Plutarch and Plato and all those guys wrote about Atlantis. It's in black and white, just like the Bible is. So, I mean, I guess it just falls on what you choose to believe.
Very true. Very true. I have a story here for you that we're going to get into. This is a little bit of a fun one, a scary one. Okay. But I would really, really, encourage people to stay out of this one particular jungle in India right now. A rampaging elephant, Terry, has killed at least 17 people amid an intensifying man-animal conflict in eastern India. Authorities state an adult male elephant has carried out at least 12 attacks in 7 days across the Saranda forest belt. It's killed 13 people in the last 2 days, including 4 members of a family in separate attacks. Yet the divisional forest officer, Aditya Narayan, says that the tusker has been moving violently across the region for several days and changing its location rapidly, which makes it difficult to track. The elephant appears to be turning rogue, and our focus now is to tranquilize it at its earliest. We are certain it is in must, which explains its heightened aggression. We're trying our best to control the situation. Must, spelled M-U-S-T-H, is a periodic condition in bull elephants marked by heightened aggression and a surge in reproductive hormones. So basically what they're saying is this elephant is horny, but it's taking it out on people because it can't find a mate. Ugh. Death by elephant just can't be a fun thought.
That's not the first kind of story about an elephant I've heard about like that. There's a reason that they say memory like an elephant. There was a story not too long ago about a woman who had apparently slighted an elephant. And the elephant didn't just take her out. It took out her and her entire family. So not only do they have exceedingly long memories, but they have there's a little bit of vengeance built in there. But I don't think that I would want to get in between a horny bull elephant and anything that it wanted. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, wow.
No. I mean, how do you even get in that situation?
Live in India.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. But you know what's really cool about it? I will say this. What's really cool about this story, okay, is as I was reading it, they are not looking at terminating it. They are looking at fixing it.
I caught that myself, and I think that's pretty
A lot of
outstanding.
times when we have animals that go rogue, I mean, even here in North America, if you have a grizzly bear who goes rogue or a black bear or even a dog for that matter, it usually gets put down. Not in this case. And good on the government of India because elephants are protected there. You know, it would be very easy for them to hunt it down and just eradicate this one particular elephant. But they're not going to do that. So kudos to them for that.
I think the one case where the elephant chased the lady down and her entire family was the woman somehow or another either interfered with the mother and its foal and its baby, or injured its baby in some shape or form. But it took the elephant over a week to track everybody down, but it literally tracked her family down. Mother Nature is a lot more amazing than we give her credit for. And these animals are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. When an elephant can hunt not only you, but your entire family down, that's saying something.
I agree.
But I think it is pretty outstanding that rather than putting this big bull elephant down, which, they're getting fewer and farther between anymore, that you said tranquilizing it. This is what brings to mind. How do you move a tranquilized bull, Dave?
Oh, you definitely need a helicopter. You definitely need a helicopter.
I think you need more than one. At least I would hope you would. Tranquilizing a big bull elephant, how do you get it on a trailer to move it around? I just don't get it.
We got 2 minutes to go. I want to get to this story because I don't know if I want to do this. You know those Waymo taxis that are out there?
Yep.
They're driver. If you don't know what they are, they're driverless taxis. They're all robots, computerized. Well, apparently a Waymo self-driving car was seen driving downtown Phoenix on light rail tracks, forcing the passenger to literally jump out of the vehicle before it continued along the tracks near an oncoming train. Video taken by a bystander shows the moment the self-driving car stops on the tracks just before an oncoming light rail approaches. The passenger runs out of the vehicle before the car continues to drive down the tracks near another train. I actually felt a little sorry for the car. It's obviously making a bad decision and got itself in a difficult place, says Andrew Maynard, an emerging and transformative technology professor at Arizona State University. Maynard said, while these situations are rare, they do occur, pretty much acting like it's, hey, it's growing up. We got to let this child grow up a little bit. And sometimes you can't smack the hand. You just got to let it learn on its own. Tough love, as they say, Terry. Okay, this is exactly one of those edge cases, what we call them. Some unexpected, where the machine drove like a machine rather than a person, Maynard said. Waymo vehicles are equipped with 29 cameras and have their routes and systems updated weekly. However, in the area where the incident happened, there was construction. The light rail was added to this spot within the last year, which Maynard said could have contributed to a track detour. I think Waymo has a challenge because no matter what they do with their system, there's always going to be unexpected circumstances where they have to learn from them. In other words, I'm not taking that car. No way am I taking that car. I have a feeling Terry won't either. We're going to continue with the weird news of the week. Full news segment here in hour 3 of tonight's show. Spaced Out Radio continues with Terry Hall and the weird news right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott. All right, Terry, we're clear.
That kind of brings to mind, you know, on a railroad track, are they ever going to charge Waymo with vehicular homicide? If something like that ever happens again and somebody gets smashed by a train?
What happens if all of a sudden the vehicle will not allow the person to get out?
That's what I was wondering. It because that what I understand when you get in those things that locks the doors, makes you wonder as if you can't pay your fare, if it's just going to leave you trapped in there and drive you straight to jail.
I don't know. I really don't know, brother. That is a scary situation. Scary situation. I don't know how I would feel about that. I'm not ready for it. I'll be honest with you. I am not ready for that. I just don't have that trust level.
Me neither, man. I'm a like a driver's driver. I don't like new cars I like on a long trip when you want to be really comfortable and feel like you got a lazy boy in your car with you.
Mhm.
But as a general rule, I'm a driver. I like something that has a little horsepower where I can feel the road and the steering wheel, that doesn't have a screen in the middle of everything. It's just plain and simple gas, spark, and you're going down the road. I'm that kind of driver. I still like the older cars where you can actually feel the car and feel the road.
Right? It feels good that way. Feels good.
Some of the money that our government puts money into, dude. Some of the stuff.
It's the future. Robot Gee, how you doing? Welcome.
No.
Just so anybody knows, if you're new here, if you come in with the word guy in your name in the YouTube chat, I am going to pronounce it the French way, Guy. Because that's such a badass name, man. Guy.
I had a buddy from Canada named Guy, and I asked Guy one time what he did in Canada when he was growing up, and he said he wished he was an American every day. That's what he did when he was in Canada.
We're having some tough times. May not be the this time right now. All right.
Guy was a very interesting guy.
We've got about 2 minutes, Terry.
So that's good. Dave, you can sit here. Literally, I just typed in weird news for the week, and there are so many stories that pop up.
You just got to check the dates, because a lot of the sites, they don't update it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is just like international news. Like this one, for instance, truck crashed in Victoria, England, and dumped 15,000 live crabs in the road.
I saw that one. I almost read that one. I almost read that one.
See, here in Oregon, when you go down on the beach, they have a lot of beaches have great big, they look like a cauldron, like a witch's cauldron. And I always wondered what those were for. And I asked a local one time, and he's like, "Oh, dude, those are for when you catch crabs. You can just boil your crabs right there on the beach." So a community pot, we could make stone soup.
Mm-hmm. Let me say thank you tonight to Benno, Mel WD40, Paramarv, and T-Bone with the natural hat trick tonight. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up tonight. If you haven't, please do. It helps with our algorithms on YouTube as well. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you go check it on out. We'd appreciate it. And tickets are on sale. We want to see all of you up here for September 18th through 20th for Caribou Con, the first annual. It is a great Paracon that we are putting on to raise money for the 108 Mile Heritage Site. We're going to have almost a dozen speakers that weekend for you. Go to cariboucon.com. cariboucon.com. Go check it on out and follow on social media. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. The weird news of the week with Terry Hall continues right after this. My name is Dave Scott. Great to have you with us as we continue on down the weird, strange path of the stories that people like you donate to us through your experiences. Yes. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wires, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X, Instagram, and on Patreon, all at Spaced Out Radio. So go check it on out. Terry, we got another weird story here for you. So, a man who has spent more than 5 decades, his name is Adrian Shine. He's 76 years old. He's been trying for the last 50 years to track down the Loch Ness Monster. And he's now, after all this time, believing he's actually been on a wild goose chase. Adrian believes the so-called sightings of the famous body of water in the Scottish Highlands actually have a rather mundane explanation, which do not involve the mythical creature. No. He says he's been looking for the long-necked monster known as Nessie since 1973. Great, my birth year. Yeah, that's this guy. And even led to a major sonar exploration back in 1987. But even though his team was armed with £1 million worth of equipment, little did they know that they would find nothing, really. Nothing concrete, leading to the fact that Loch Ness exists. However, he has now revealed that he has become very skeptical about the existence of the mythical creature that he has dedicated his life to finding after believing he had spotted one of its humps, which turned out actually to be a rock. Shine explained that he believes that the countless sightings of Nessie people have reported are actually results of ship wakes. He suspects that movements in the water caused by passing boats and the fact that the Caledonian Canal runs through Loch Ness have been fooling people into thinking they've spotted the monster. He goes on to say the sightings are caused by ship wakes. Here they develop the multi-hump form, and that's what people see often. A longtime Nessie hunter said there are alternate explanations from other phenomena witnessed on the water too, including why people often believe they've spotted the elusive monster's long neck. He says that it's actually something of an optical illusion, which is actually the result of birds gathering on a calm surface. Your thoughts, Terry?
50 years is a long time to look for something. And you figure in 50, I mean, persistence, that guy, give a dog a bone. I mean, for goodness sakes, Dave. Or you figure in 50 years, and there's been several different programs as far as them using sonar and other ways and means to try to detect Nessie. I've never been much of a Nessie thumbs up kind of guy. There's too many people there, too few sightings, and there's no way say in other fields, there's ways and means to check things, like repeatable experiments that have proven results. There's never been anything like that for Nessie. They have scanned that place from port to starboard, stem to stern, several different times. I just it's landlocked, and unless there's some sort of underground waterway where that thing would be able to migrate and leave and come back, or I just can't see it ever have been true. Um, Back to the original Nessie photographs that were so famous, even the guy who made those said it was a little ship that he strapped something onto. So I never have been much of a Nessie believer, Dave. Not even from day one. Even when Leonard Nimoy was reporting about it, way a long time ago. You figure in 50 years, looking into something, if you've only seen it once and then you've proved to yourself that it was a rock, seems to me like that guy's been barking up the wrong tree for 50 years. What do you think?
Well, you know what? I will put it this way. Okay. I know hunters in my area who, not just hunters, loggers as well, who've been in the forest for 30, 40, 50 years around here hunting or logging and have never seen anything strange. They don't buy into the story of Sasquatch. They don't buy into the story that there is a monster out there with the amount of time that they have spent in the forests. So, really, I can understand the skepticism. This guy has put in the effort of 50 years. But that doesn't mean just because he hasn't seen something that it automatically means that the creature doesn't exist. If you go with the late Dr. John Bindernagel, who lived on Vancouver Island, literally researched Sasquatch since he was a kid. He started, I think, at around 14 years old, and he investigated Sasquatch for 70 years. In fact, he became an anthropologist because of his love of wanting to solve the Sasquatch mystery. And he literally never saw a Sasquatch. He saw footprints, he saw evidence, but he never saw the creature himself. And so, even though he could have written it off that going to these so-called hot spots, that maybe, just maybe, there was somebody in there making these false footprints or leaving false hair samples or whatever it may be, okay, he never bought into that theory. He believed there were too many stories, too many eyewitnesses, and too much evidence, like the footprints and so on and so forth, that meant that there was something out there that needed scientific explanation. Now, this guy, he doesn't seem to be a scientist, but an avid researcher. I'm not saying his personal information is wrong for him, but it might be wrong for someone else, Terry.
True, but when it comes to making a comparison apples to apples like that, Dave, that's not very fair. Bigfoot is not in a landlocked body of water. Bigfoot has a lot of other stories that, well, like the one that we were talking about today, where the gentleman had a Bigfoot sighting, and when he got on the trail and got basically eye to eye with it, he said it was a shapeshifter and shifted into a moose. So we've got all kinds of stories like that, but what draws the line for me with the Loch Ness monster is it's a landlocked body of water, no egress, no exit. With Bigfoot, I mean, the world's a great big wide place, and you've got from the Pacific Northwest up to where you're at, sighting after sighting after sighting by lots of different people. If they let's say that Bigfoot was stuck in an area that he just couldn't get out of, and they've sent tons of researchers in there with side scanning and this, that, and LiDAR and everything else, I think the chances of them finding a Bigfoot are a lot higher than them finding something that they've searched for. Not just the one gentleman, but researcher after researcher after researcher has looked for the Loch Ness monster. The Loch Ness monster has never left a footprint anywhere that I know of.
I agree. Totally agree, Terry. Let's move on to another story here. Do Do you have one, or do you want me to throw one at you here?
No, you go right ahead. I'm
Right.
having fun with these.
Here's a weird one, Terry. Now, I know they say love has no bounds, even in death. You've heard that statement before.
Mhm.
Well, this takes it to a whole new level. An elderly man allegedly attempted to board a flight with his deceased wife at an airport in Spain. The elderly woman was seated in a wheelchair, raised suspicions among staff due to her lack of responsiveness. The peculiar incident reportedly unfolded during a routine security check when the man, who's 80 years old, tried to pass through a metal detector, treating his unresponsive wife as just another passenger. Security personnel noticed the woman's condition, discovering she was not breathing and her body temperature was alarmingly low. The news outlets reported that the husband initially stated his wife had passed away several hours earlier. Within the airport, actually, the man was subsequently arrested on site, and an investigation into the circumstances of the woman's death is underway by local authorities. I mean, that is just absolutely freaky. It is. It's sad. It's a very sad story, Terry, but just creepy nonetheless.
That's bizarro world, man. Wow.
Yeah.
That I can't even hardly fathom that, Dave. I mean, talk about being determined to take a trip. Holy smoke. If with the kind of determination that fella had, I bet you there was never a job that he had that was undone or that was unfinished. Holy cow. Wow. Every time you talk about something like this, David, it just keeps bringing me back to the one story that we were talking about a long time ago about reincarnation and what happens to you when you die.
Right.
But wow, talk about determined to take a trip. It's about as determined as that bear that they had in California. The fella had a bear under his house in California. This is a funny one. Had a bear under his house in California. So they bring the trap out to catch the bear, and they put chocolates and cherries and all kinds of stuff in there. And the bear goes in and they slam the door. And as they're driving off, they found out it was a different bear. And the same bear was still under the fella's house. It is still under the gentleman's house.
Oh my.
But
I know people around here who have had that happen.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. That they've had bears crawl in under their houses, and it's a real thing. Like, this isn't just something that happens every now and again. This is a real thing.
Can you imagine that bear and his buddy under the house, and he's like, man, those cherries really smell. Why don't you go get us a couple, homie? Clang.
Right?
Bears are getting smarter every day, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? It's warm. I mean, you only have to worry if they wake up because they'll be hungry. So
yeah, true.
It is what it is. Oh, speaking of bears, by the way, wildlife officials in Tennessee, Terry, are investigating a serial burglary after a candy store was broken into and ransacked by a bear, not for the first or second time, but the fourth time. Yeah. Glades Homemade Candles in Gatlinburg said on their social media pages that the store was broken into by a bear last Thursday, and the bear caused significant damage to the store and its wares. Yep. It's apparently the fourth time this bustling bear has broken into the store. We have nurtured our arts and crafts business in this community for 35 years. spreading the joy and love to our customers, blessed by divine providence. But this persistent bear is a challenge we urgently need to overcome, the owners wrote. Store owners contacted Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, which confirmed an investigation has been opened. The owners said they are hoping the bear will be relocated without any harm to the animal, though. Let's see if that happens.
Well, they got to make sure he gets its favorite scented candle so he doesn't come back.
Right? Right? My goodness. There are a lot of stories in Whistler. If you've ever been to Whistler, BC, or you could YouTube this.
Mm-hmm.
Whistler is one of the most popular skiing resorts in the world. And there is some crazy videos there of a black bear breaking into a pizza shop. Well, it's not really breaking into it. The door is open, and the bear just walks in, helps himself to a pizza, and then takes off. It's happened a couple of times.
My wife likes to talk about this, and she's right, and I know she's right. It's hard to argue that the more and more we encroach on Mother Nature and claim it as our own, we're taking away. I mean, we're making these animals homeless. They have nowhere else to go. So the more we take from them, the more often they're going to come and visit us in ways that might make us laugh, but in the end, it's kind of unfortunate because now you have one of the most beautiful things that God's ever created, or that nature's ever created, let's say, and it's gotten to the point now to where it's putting itself in harm's way for calories. Bears don't break into a place because they're vindictive about something. It's a calorie-driven deficit diet. And the more we encroach on Mother Nature, the more often that this is going to happen. And the Indians they're thinking it the right way. Instead of taking out a bull moose or taking out a bull elephant, they're going to tranquilize it and move it. I think that we ought to do that a lot more often than we do down here.
Well, I think we got time for one more story here. All right. This one's a little grotesque, but that's people for you. Bones and skulls visible in the backseat of a car near an abandoned cemetery on Philadelphia's outskirts led police to a basement filled with body parts.
I heard about this one,
which authorities say were hoarded by a man now accused of stealing 100 sets of human remains.
He had bodies hanging in his basement.
I hear this. Investigators searched the Ephrata home and storage unit of a guy named Jonathan Chris Gerlach, 34 years old, for literally breaking into the Mount Moriah cemetery and digging up and breaking into 26 mausoleums and vaults that had been forced open to steal the bodies. They were in various states, reporters say. Some of them were hanging, as it were. Some of them were pieced together. Some were just skulls on a shelf, said Delaware County District Attorney Tanner Rouse. Most were in the basement, authorities said, and they also recovered jewelry believed to be linked to the graves. In one case, a pacemaker was still attached to the body. Police say Gerlach targeted mausoleums and underground vaults at the 1855 cemetery. It's considered the country's largest abandoned burial ground, according to Friends of Mount Moriah Cemetery, which helps maintain the 160-acre landmark in Yeadon that's home to an estimated 150,000 grave sites. Yeah. So police have been looking into this string of burglaries when an investigator checked Gerlach's vehicle plates and found that it had been near Yeadon repeatedly during the period when the burglaries occurred. Police say the break-ins centered on the sealed vaults and mausoleums containing older burials, which had been smashed open or had stonework damage to reach the remains inside. He was arrested as he walked back towards his car with a crowbar, police said, and a burlap bag, which officers found the mummified remains of 2 small children, 3
Ew.
skulls, and other bones. Gerlach told investigators he took about 30 sets of human remains and showed them the graves he stole them from. Given the enormity of what we are looking at and the sheer utter lack of reasonable explanation, it's difficult to say right now at this juncture exactly why it took place. Gerlach has been charged with 100 counts of abuse to a corpse and receiving stolen property, along with multiple counts of desecrating a public monument, desecrating a venerated object, desecrating a historic burial place, burglary, trespassing, and theft. He is being jailed on $1 million bonds, and no lawyer was listed in his courtroom. Probably doesn't want to touch this one. Your thoughts, Terry?
I mean, I've heard of use of body parts in certain rituals and magics and things like that, but that just leaves me stunned. And he wasn't very picky. He took little ones, big ones, in between ones, bits and pieces, parts, and the whole thing. A pacemaker. I mean, really? A pacemaker? Can you imagine what the dude's house smelled like? Oh,
my goodness. I don't
raw
even want to
sewage,
think about
dirt,
that.
and garbage. Oh, that would be bad. That would be bad. And what was he doing with all this stuff? That's what's tripping me out about the whole thing. I mean,
Very
they get
Dahmer.
weirder all the time. That bingo. It was, I'm thinking, okay, Dahmer? No. The body parts would have been rotten. He's not like he's eating them. Did he just, was he lonely and needed company and was building his own friend list or what?
No idea. All
That's
I'm
kinda
saying
morbid
is
to
that
think about.
I'm very glad that he was caught.
Boy, that's going to be a case study for the ages, huh?
Right?
I mean, they figured out that, like serial killers, they like, they start off killing dogs and little animals and stuff. Well, this guy just started at the whole opposite end. He just figured, well, I'll start with them dead and I'll work my way around it. Oh,
Right?
can you imagine if he was waiting to make okay, I can't find the perfect one, so I'm going to have to make one myself.
Terry Hall, it's been fun on the Weird News of the Week. We'll talk to you next week as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, give me 2 seconds, Terry Hall. Excuse me. Great show tonight, buddy. Great show. That was fun.
That was fun. And Dad,
Changes
just
the
so you know,
dynamic of a little bit of what we do.
there was another one, Dave. It was about a raffle at a Roman Catholic church down near St. Jude's. They were raffling off a Corvette. And apparently the winner of the raffle was a ghost.
A ghost?
Yes.
Oh, save that. Don't say any more about that story. Save that for next week. That's a good one, man.
It doesn't. You don't have to search very long to find a weird, strange, and unbelievable anymore.
Right? One second here, buddy. Right. I had fun with that though.
Yeah, I
It was a
think
good mixture of weird stories and paranormal stories.
like I said, the weird and wacky, it is not hard to find anymore.
Right? How did you enjoy it?
I liked it. So Kurt in the chat here said that that Ron did a shout out to SOR on the Rick Beto interview.
Who did?
Bubblefoot.
Oh, did he?
According to your very well informed folks in your chat room, he did.
Oh, when was this? When was this?
Let's see. Kurt M 2566, who chatted in at 12:59 a.m. When was said show? If you're still in the chat there. As I remember when he did Rick Beto, it was like, I know it was last year. I think it was in October, Dave, if I'm not mistaken. Like October 9th, October 16th, somewhere around in there. Well, boss, I'm going to take off. I've got to get caught up on Fallout. They got the new show out today, and I'm a Fallout nut.
I'm going to go listen to this now. Why does this cord keep falling down? Goodness.
Because it's not happy being up. That's why. It never has been happy being up.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to T-Bone, my man. Thank you for the hat trick of super chats. Paramarv, Mel WD40, and Benno. And thank you all for listening. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up. And tomorrow night on the show, Sean Bond is going to join us from the Psionic League, which is all about connection to spirit, connecting with your mind, psionics, summoning. We're going to get into it all tomorrow night on the show. Great to have you here, Terry. Thank you for doing it. Thank you to everybody else tuning us in. And good night to all of you. We'll see you soon.
Good night, all.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.